Let's make it uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Imagine that without knowing it, you've been carrying a curse your entire life. No, it's not witchcraft. It's not something esoteric. It's worse. It's something you carry inside, that breathes with you, that disguises itself as you. It's your shadow. That part that nobody sees but that pulls your strings. That part hiding behind every uncontrollable impulse, behind every decision that ruins everything just when it seemed to be going well. Do you feel it? That constant presence that you can't explain but that doesn't go away. Have you ever had the experience that in the middle of silence, you hear a voice in your head that isn't you but sounds exactly like you? That voice that whispers you will fail, that no one really loves you, that you are a burden, that you are too much or too little. Do you know what the trap is? That voice doesn't hate you, it protects you. But it does so from the wound. And you have mistaken that wound for your identity. You've gotten used to living on the edge of emotional collapse, without knowing why. To repeating habits that drag you down, to sabotaging what you love, to numbing what hurts, to pretending everything is fine while something inside you begs you to stop. Have you ever wondered why you do what you do when you're alone? Why you consume yourself with dark thoughts you don't share with anyone? Why you repeat self-destructive patterns, even when you know they are breaking you? It's not a lack of strength. It's not weakness. It's a code. A signal you've been ignoring so long it had to scream. Because your soul can no longer keep holding itself together with patches. And now I'm going to tell you something you may not be ready to hear. If you feel like you don't fit in, that everything affects you too much, that you live on a constant emotional roller coaster, it's because your aura isn't normal. It's extraordinarily rare, intensely striking, and that's a problem. Not for you, for others, because people like you don't go unnoticed. They feel you before they see you. Your very presence makes them uncomfortable. It stirs them. It wakes them up. Because you carry something ancient, dense, a truth that others have repressed so well that they no longer even remember it exists. And here's the real mystery. That energy, that sensitivity, that intensity, they are not system errors. They are internal alarms, indicators that something essential in your life has been screaming for attention. And instead of listening, you've medicated it with distractions. You've created routines to avoid thinking. You've filled your life with noise so you won't hear the brutal whisper of your subconscious. But it doesn't go away, because it's not something you can eliminate. It's something you must integrate. And the more you deny it, the more it transforms into compulsions, into addictions, into toxic relationships, into chronic anxiety, into behaviors you don't even understand but can't stop, because they are your shadow trying to save you. And do you know what the darkest part of all this is? That no one taught you to see your pain as a message. They taught you to repress it, to feel ashamed of it, to mask it with productivity, to silence it with empty positive words. But here you are, and your shadow hasn't gone away. In fact, it's right behind you right now, watching you, waiting, not to destroy you, but so that finally you pay attention to it. This video is not for those who live asleep. It's for those who, like you, have started to suspect that what breaks them also guides them. We're not going to talk about easy solutions, nor cheap motivation. We're going to dive into what no one dares to look at. Your cycles, your impulses, your fears, your need to please, your emptiness, your anger. We're going to decipher the hidden language of your internal chaos. Because your chaos isn't random, it's logical, it's ancient, and it's brilliant. Your pain is not the enemy, it's the compass. Do you dare to look at what you've always avoided? Because once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. And then you'll have to choose, Are you going to keep running from yourself? Or are you going to turn on the flashlight and go down to the basement where you hid everything you really are? Because only there, among the rubble of what you denied, your true power awaits you, silent, dark, immense, and hungry for truth. Perfect. I'll start this part over from scratch, horizontally, without poetic tone or broken verses. Here is the continuation of the video, fluid, intense, without losing the immersive tone and with a new approach fully linked to the main idea. Let's talk about something almost nobody touches: how uncomfortable it is to have consciousness. I'm not talking about moral conscience, nor about knowing right from wrong. I'm talking about that raw, relentless awareness that forces you to truly see yourself. The one that makes you question everything, even when others seem to float on the surface without worrying about anything. And yes, I know, it's exhausting. Because when you see too much, you feel too much. And when you feel too much, you start building mechanisms so you don't collapse. The problem is, those mechanisms are the same ones that end up disconnecting you from yourself. Have you noticed how this works? You begin to have behaviors you don't even understand. You isolate yourself without knowing why. You become addicted to things you don't even enjoy. You self-sabotage just when everything seems to be going well. But behind all that, there is no madness. There is poorly digested lucidity. Because when you have heightened sensitivity, reality doesn't enter your mind like it does for others. It comes in unfiltered, raw. Every word, every gesture, every silence is interpreted in 1,000 different layers. And that creates an overload that few understand. That's where compulsive patterns are born. Not from weakness, but from excess. You're not broken, you're overloaded. Your mind processes more, your body holds more, your heart endures more. Until it can't anymore. And then the vice appears. The repetitive behavior, the obsession, the escape. But here's the fucked up part. When you finally have that moment of relief, when you eat, drink, distract yourself, let loose, the system relaxes, and it interprets it as a solution. Even if it destroys you, and you who are conscious, you know it. But you can't avoid it, because the mind doesn't respond to logic when what it needs is emotional relief. That's why repeating is not a choice, it's a response. And the harder you try to control it through willpower, the more it slips away. Because what you need is not more discipline, it's more understanding, more presence, more space to feel what you have repressed for years. And you know what makes it even more complex? While you fight against this internal whirlwind, from the outside everything seems fine. You have normal days, moments of calm, social appearances, and that makes even you doubt yourself. Am I exaggerating? Am I too dramatic? Why does everything affect me so much if my life isn't that bad? That's the trap, the self-deception you build when you start distrusting your own pain. But pain doesn't need permission to exist, nor justification. It just is. And that's enough. Now listen carefully, because this is important. The higher your level of emotional perception, the more sophisticated the ways you hide from yourself become. You no longer need drugs or visible excesses. Sometimes it's enough to fill yourself with busyness, to take care of everyone but yourself, to intellectualize everything, to say, I already worked on that, when really you just buried it under theories. What you do to escape is much more elegant than before, but just as destructive. And here comes the hardest concept of all. Your shadow is not only made up of what you don't like about yourself, it's also made up of everything you don't dare admit you do need, of the desires you judge, of the rage you disguise as calm, of the need to be seen, loved, validated, that you've learned to deny to seem self-sufficient. And the more you deny that, the stronger your unconscious urge to get it becomes. It's not that you lack control, it's that you lack permission. Permission to feel without filters, to get angry without guilt, to cry without explanations, to say "I need" without shame. Because most of your patterns aren't there out of addiction to pleasure. They're there from emotional hunger, from unheard needs, from wounds that remain open, even though they have been scarred over for years on the surface. Do you want to know why breaking the cycle is so hard? Because pain, even if it destroys you, is also familiar. It's predictable. It's controllable. While well-being, calm, real connection feels strange to you, uncomfortable, suspicious. That's why when things start going well, you ruin them. Not because you're stupid, not because you don't deserve it, but because the emotional system you've trained for years understands that good is dangerous, because it exposes you, because it makes you vulnerable, because you don't know what to do with peace. And this is the deepest core of everything. Your system doesn't want happiness, it wants safety. And if safety was built in chaos, then that's what you'll seek, again and again. That's why it's hard for you to let go. That's why you repeat bonds with people who aren't good for you. That's why you become dependent on things you hate, because your body interprets the familiar as safe, even if it hurts. So, it's not a matter of willpower. It's a matter of deep emotional reprogramming. And that reprogramming doesn't happen through force. It happens when you start honestly looking at everything you've avoided. When you start building internal spaces where you can feel without hiding. When you stop trying to prove something and start asking yourself, what part of me needs to be recognized? What emotion am I denying? What impulse am I judging so much that I'm unintentionally strengthening it? Your sensitivity, your intensity, your capacity to feel the world deeply are not system errors. They are the consequence of a mind that had to learn to survive in an unkind environment. And now, that same system is asking you for something else, not to survive anymore, but to heal, to integrate, to return to yourself, without masks, without filters, without excuses, with all the rawness, rage, tenderness, and chaos that implies, because in the end, the only truly revolutionary thing is daring to be yourself without anesthesia, and that is the hardest task, but also the only one that can truly free you. And just when you start to understand that the key isn't eliminating your impulses, but understanding them, another truth appears that completely unsettles you. You're not only fighting your current emotions, you're also carrying emotions that aren't yours, invisible emotional inheritances, burdens that didn't start with you, but that end up with you if you decide to do the work. Because yes, even if it sounds brutal, many of the emotions that overwhelm you weren't born in your story, but in that of your parents, your grandparents, your roots. And the worst part is that all of that is stored not in your head, but in your body. That anxiety that appears for no apparent reason, that deep sadness you don't understand where it comes from, that feeling of guilt for choosing yourself. Sometimes they're not yours. They are unconscious loyalties you learned without realizing it, as if your body were a kind of container for inherited emotions. They don't teach you this in school, nor do you see it in shiny self-help books. But you carry it inside. You live it raw every time you try to move forward and something invisible pulls you back. Has this happened to you? You decide to make a real change. You start taking care of yourself, setting boundaries, saying no. And suddenly you feel bad, as if you were betraying something, as if you were breaking a rule you don't remember agreeing to. That's called emotional memory. And it's not only in your personal history, It's in your lineage, and how your family learned to survive, and how your role models repressed, silenced, endured. You inherited that way of being in the world, and now when you try to do it differently, your internal system experiences it as a danger. And that's when many give up, because they believe pain means they're failing, when in reality, it means they are freeing themselves. Change doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like betrayal, because you're breaking invisible pacts that held a sick but familiar balance. That's why moving forward hurts. Not because you're wrong, but because you're the first in your line to do things differently, and that has a price. You will feel lonely. You will feel misunderstood. You will feel like you're going crazy. But it's not madness. It's rupture. It's evolution. It's deep emotional cleansing, and no one applauds you for that. No one notices. But you feel it. You know it. You live it in your skin. So what can you do when everything you were starts to fall apart? The first thing is to understand that this isn't the end. It's the beginning. The exact moment when your identity begins to rebuild itself from what is real, from who you are, not from what you were taught to be. And here starts another equally challenging process: rebuilding your self-esteem. But not that superficial self-esteem based on achievements, likes, social acceptance. I mean emotional self-esteem. The one based on knowing yourself deeply and still choosing yourself. The one that doesn't waver when you fail. The one that holds you when no one else does. And here comes the most interesting part. Most of us have a self-image created by how others looked at us. Parents, teachers, partners, friends. And over time, that image becomes a cage, because we start living to maintain it, not out of self-love, but out of fear of rejection. And that's the next big challenge: breaking the image, stopping trying to be the person others expect, and starting to be the person you really need. It's not easy, because that image is often tied to your sense of worth. If you learned that you only matter when you care for others, when you stay silent, when you don't bother, when you perform, then every time you prioritize yourself, you'll feel guilty. But that guilt is an illusion. You owe nothing to anyone for being you. You're not here to maintain the emotional balance of others at the cost of your own well-being. And if your aura, your energy, your intensity make others uncomfortable, so be it. You didn't come to this world to be comfortable. You came to wake up, to transform, to break cycles. And now, listen carefully, because this goes straight to your nervous system. You don't need to be on alert all the time. You don't have to anticipate everything to avoid pain. You're no longer in danger, but your body doesn't know it yet. That's why it reacts like this. That's why you live with constant muscle tension. That's why you sleep poorly. That's why you eat without hunger or stop eating with anxiety. Because your body learned that being relaxed is synonymous with vulnerability. And here's the real work. Re-educate your system so it understands it no longer needs to defend itself against everything. This isn't achieved just with meditation, nor with affirmations in front of the mirror. It's achieved with repeated acts of self-love, with clear boundaries, with moments of pause where you can tell yourself, "I'm safe. I don't have to run. I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to save anyone." And yes, at first you'll feel guilt, emptiness, even a kind of inexplicable sadness. But that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're cleansing. You're shedding layers you've carried since childhood. You're releasing weights that weren't yours. And when you start living from there, something changes. Your impulses calm down. Your compulsion dissolves. Not because you defeated it, but because you no longer need it. Because you're no longer running away. You're inhabiting yourself. You're listening to yourself. You're acting from connection, not from emptiness. And that's what no one teaches you. That when you learn to truly be with yourself, many of your battles fade away on their own. Your intensity doesn't go away, but it transforms. It becomes creative fire, direction, brutal authenticity. It's no longer a weapon that hurts you. It's a flame that guides you. And then you stop fighting yourself. You stop seeing your sensitivity as a burden. And you start seeing it for what it always was. A door, a compass, a profound way to understand the world and transform it. And that transformation starts with you. Here, now, where you can no longer pretend, where your soul demands truth, where your body begs for rest, where your story finally wants to be rewritten from consciousness and not from the wound. So don't cover it up. Don't deny it. Don't distract yourself. Look at it. Listen to it. Embrace it. Because in that part of yourself you fear the most lies everything you need to free yourself. And you are already ready, even if you don't know it yet. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. And here is where things get really interesting. Because just when you think you've understood what's happening to you, just when you feel you're starting to unravel the emotional chaos you carry inside, something deeper appears, something many never discover. Beneath all your suffering, beneath your impulses, your emptiness, your anxiety, and your need for validation, there is a brutal force waiting to be unleashed. A force that doesn't resemble what they've sold you as self-esteem or empowerment. It's not an image of success, nor a perfect version of you. It's something much rawer, much more real. Your capacity to emotionally hold yourself without depending on external judgment, without needing to be okay all the time, without demanding yourself to be an optimized version of you every day. And when you discover that, when you start living from there, the spell breaks. Life stops feeling like a race to prove something. Your relationships change, your way of working changes, even your way of breathing changes. You no longer need to fight so much. You're no longer trying to fit in. You start creating spaces where you can simply exist. And that, in this world, is a revolution. But there is one last trap, the most dangerous of all. And it is this: thinking that now that you understand everything, you will stop falling. Thinking that knowledge is immunity, that you will never again doubt yourself, sabotage yourself, or run from yourself. Lieutenant, you will keep falling. Because growth doesn't make you perfect, it makes you honest. You will repeat patterns again. You will feel anxiety again. You will have days where you don't understand anything you feel, and that's okay. Because now you don't run from yourself. Now you see yourself. You observe yourself. And you choose yourself again and again. That is the difference between a life lived from unconsciousness and a life lived from truth. It's not that everything suddenly gets better. It's that you stop demanding yourself to always be okay in order to deserve love, respect, or rest. It's that you give yourself permission to be human, complete, contradictory, intense, and free. And here comes the final part, the one only those who make it this far can understand. Your shadow is not what stops you from moving forward. Your shadow is what's pushing you to wake up. Every time you overflow, every time you collapse, every time you feel like you can't take it anymore, it's not the end. It's the body saying, "Enough ignoring me, listen to me, I need to heal." And when you finally do, when instead of numbing yourself, you decide to breathe with what is, that's when your internal revolution begins. That's when your true life begins. So if you've made it this far, if you've felt every word as if I were speaking only to you, let me tell you something. It's no coincidence. You're ready. You're on the exact edge where something inside you no longer wants to go back. And if this video has stirred something in you, if it has given you a clue, a truth, or even an emotional punch you needed, subscribe, but not for me. Do it for yourself. Because here, we're not going to talk about the superficial. Here we're going to keep digging, dismantling, revealing what others don't even dare to mention. And let me read you in the comments. If you truly connected with this message, write, "My shadow no longer scares me." That way I'll know you made it here, that you're not running away, that you're awake. And now, yes, I say goodbye. But not with a pretty phrase, not with a typical conclusion. I say goodbye with a question that will haunt you much more than any advice. Who would you be if you stopped fighting against yourself? See you in the next abyss, or in your next awakening, you choose.